I like to live vicariously on the edge.
I like to
my
live my
books.
murder mysteries vicariously as well. I don't want to be involved in them.
You don't?
Nah.
Really?
No,
Because haven't we had murder mystery parties?
Yeah, that's not real though.
It could be.
They weren't real?
It could be. I don't know. There was a body. Hello, and welcome back to another exciting episode of Zebadextra v Phebo.
Exciting.
Where we are always reviewing new movies or books or, TV shows.
Mm-hmm.
And we give you our opinion on whether you should go ahead and spend the dough and watch it as well.
Or the time.
Or the time.
Yeah.
The time is...
We're here to save you some time.
Yes. So if my 1 hour summation of a 12-hour book saves you 11 hours, multiply that by whatever your wage is and you can just send me a check.
Send yourself a check and buy you something pretty.
There you go. Buy something nice. So, today's episode, we're going to be reviewing a book that Phebo here has picked out. And that book is called The Maid, and it's by Nina Prose.
Mm-hmm.
And if I have to sum up this book, it's kind of a murder mystery. The main character, I believe, has some special needs.
She has autism, most likely. It's never stated.
It's not stated, but it seems like she has some disability with dealing with
social cues,
understanding social cues, and
hyper-focusing on things.
Yes.
So we have a son on the spectrum, which is one of the reasons I picked this book. I thought it would be a fun read.
It was definitely an interesting read.
You wouldn't categorize it as fun. Were you meh about this book?
I would say I kind of liked it.
Okay. Were you meh until the last third?
I was meh until at least the halfway mark.
Yeah.
Because I'll be honest, a lot of our son, he does a lot of repetitious things, and it seemed like that's the same thing in this book. There was a lot of repetition.
Oh, I never picked that up.
Yeah, because she was constantly going back and thinking through the same things over and over.
This is why I started this podcast, so that I could talk to Tim about the books we're reading, because I just like it so much better hearing somebody else's perspective. So if you want to read a murder mystery about a maid in a fancy hotel in New York, mm-hmm. She's on the autism spectrum probably, and there's, a murder that happens, and she's one of the main suspects.
Yes.
Persons of interest. If that sounds interesting to you, then read the book, and then come back and listen to us review it.
Yeah, I would say, give it a chance. It's... It was a good book.
Yeah, the second half picks up a lot.
Yeah, it wasn't... I wouldn't say this was in my top 10 books of all time.
It's not exciting. You read exciting books, I feel like.
I do. I enjoy excitement. I like to live vicariously on the edge.
I like to live my murder mysteries vicariously as well. I don't want to be involved in them.
You don't?
Nah.
Really? Because haven't we had murder mystery parties?
Yeah, that's not real though.
It could be.
They weren't real?
It could be. I don't know. There was a body.
All right, so now we're going to get into full spoilers.
Full spoilers.
So if you would like us to save you the time of reading it, here we go.
Here we go. So it starts out with Molly, the maid. Yeah. And even she thinks it's ironic that her name. And she is working at the Regency Grand Hotel. Okay. And she likes things very, very simple and very neat.
And she loves her job.
She absolutely loves her job.
This is her dream job.
Dream job, right? She's very thankful for her job. And she actually says she feels like she comes alive at work. Okay. She is very socially awkward. So you know how most people are at work. If there's somebody that they think that isn't on their par, they they tend to want to make fun of them and joke around about them and
What do you mean? Like socially not on their par? Like not in the same
well
social circle?
or even intellectual level.
People at
Um,
work make fun of people with different intellectual levels.
I've worked at several jobs, especially jobs like fast food, where yes, there was a lot of joking around about that kind of
Okay.
thing.
I've never experienced that.
You've also never had a job.
I've never had a job.
Never.
I've had a lot of jobs in the food service industry, and I've been a piano teacher for many years, and now I own my own business. And let me tell you, nobody makes fun of people with intellectual impairment at my place of work.
Of course they don't. You own it.
Okay, well, that's really sad
Yes.
that people make fun of other people.
Well, I'm not saying, just people with different impairments.
Well, that's what I was asking about.
They just make fun of everybody. They generally tend to, um, backbite and.
You were working with some jerks then, because nobody did
Yeah.
that at the bank. I worked in banking for years. Nobody made fun of each other at the bank.
Are you kidding me?
No.
If you didn't know, you were the one they were backbiting.
Really?
Yes.
Really?
Yeah.
That's so sad.
I know.
Well,
oh, my poor baby.
I'm going to choose to move on from that. That was 11 years ago.
All right. So we'll move on.
Okay, so normally, apparently, according to Tim, people make fun of their coworkers at work.
Well, yeah.
All right. And so how does that lead into this story?
Well, it's just something to be brought up because throughout the book,
Uh-huh.
her
coworkers are kind of like side-eyeing her.
They side eye her. They call her Roomba.
Oh,
and,
yeah, that's what you're trying to point out.
They joke on her and
like specifically her supervisor.
Yeah, her supervisor's an a-hole.
Yeah.
So anyhow, back to the book. She's really upset. She misses her grandmother. Her grandmother died about 9 months ago. And since that time, she's had a even harder time dealing with things.
Wait, pause. People in your current job make fun of people with intellectual impairment?
No.
So maybe you can rephrase what you said before, because now I'm starting to think like at every workplace you've worked at.
No, not at every workplace I've worked at, but I don't know. They could
like in
do
the
it.
service
You know what?
industry?
They could do it at where I work now, but like I work with geniuses, so they would be picking on me.
I don't think that people behave like that at most jobs.
Okay.
It seems like maybe something people do when they're not adults.
Yeah. Well, I did work with a lot of children.
Well, like
a lot
teenagers.
Of kids. Yeah.
Okay. So,
and even the adults I worked with there were kind of like kids.
I would also, maybe our viewers can confirm or deny this, but I would think that things have come a long way since you were working in those kind of places where you had
How
stuff
old
like
am
happen.
I?
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, I don't think people behave like that at work. But.
Okay, possibly.
Sorry, I'm getting really stuck on this because I'm like, people, behave better. Okay, go ahead.
So 15 years ago when I worked with these people. Oh my goodness. Should I move on now? Or are we gonna loop back to this room?
Where are you at?
I'm literally on this line right here.
Okay, sorry.
We're about 47 minutes in.
Start with the part where her grandma died 9 months ago.
So she really misses her grandmother who passed away about 9 months ago. Mm-hmm. And she kind of comes into a little shock when she's cleaning her hotel rooms. By the way, she generally cleans was it floor 4?
Floor 4, and it's like the upper penthouse kind of rooms.
It's the upscale areas. And one of the couples that she is always cleaning for is Mr. and Mrs. Black. I'm sure they said what Mr. Black's first name was at some point, but I don't remember it.
I don't
But they
remember either.
they do refer to his wife as Giselle.
Yeah, we don't have any dialogue really from Mr. Black, so I don't think that they
Not
ever
really.
really.
I mean, the only thing the only dialogue we have from him comes up in just a minute here,
Yeah.
and it's.
Spoiler: Mr. Black is Mr. Body.
Didn't I just say that?
I
Oh no,
don't
I
know.
hadn't got that far, huh?
I don't know.
So she walks into the Black's hotel room and she finds Mr. Black dead.
Mm-hmm.
And she had returned to clean the Black's bathroom because Giselle Black was in the shower when she'd come previously to clean the room. And it was also stated that Mr. Black owns like a quarter of all the offices in town.
Mm.
And
He's a magnate.
yeah, yeah, yeah. And they also introduce us to Juan Manuel. Juan Manuel is the kitchen staff. He's the dishwasher at the Regency Grand Hotel. And he is one of Molly's
friends.
few friends.
Yeah.
On her way up to the Black's room, she had stopped to greet Manuel.
Juan Manuel.
Juan Manuel.
Was it kind of like jumping around at this point?
It was. It was jumping around a little bit.
Yeah.
And because what had happened was she goes in, she finds the body, then she jumps back in time because she's in shock.
Oh.
And she goes back through her entire day and shows up at the hotel, and her walk through the lobby.
Oh yeah.
And
when she's in shock, she like has to go back to the nice part of her day.
Yeah,
and, like,
and resets and walks through it. So
that's why the beginning felt really slow, because they're like murder, and then they're like backtrack,
and then you get caught back up and then backtrack.
Yeah.
Caught back up, backtrack.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh my goodness.
It's interesting narrative style, that's for sure.
Yeah, they definitely Tarantino the hell out of this.
It fills you in with some backstory while starting in the action right away. So she's up on the 4th floor. She's
Right.
cleaning people's rooms.
Right.
She goes in the first time and she's cleaning, but Giselle's in the bathroom, so she has to
Right.
come back out and go
But they
back
don't
in
give
later.
you all of that. She doesn't give you all of that at first.
Okay. And she saw Mr. Black the first time she was in there, right?
Well, as she was going in, he came out
Okay.
and bumped into her, and
he was really
he's
mad.
like, derogatory to her.
Yeah.
And she noticed at the time that he had a piece of paper in his pocket.
Okay.
And when she finds him on his back dead, he's missing the paper from his jacket.
So when she comes back to the hotel room, is Giselle there anymore, or she's not there?
Giselle is not there. Oh, she also noticed that he had red and purple pinpricks around his eyes.
Mr. Black? When he's like
Mr.
running
Black.
out of the room?
No, when he's dead.
Okay, so she sees the body.
So now she's in the room.
Okay.
Right? And she's back with the body.
Mm-hmm.
And she sees that he has these...
purple
yeah.
pinpricks, huh?
Yeah, there's
Interesting.
red and purple pinpricks around his eyes.
Do you know who did it yet?
Probably not, since we've named 3 people. 4, Juan Manuel. So she calls Mr. Snow in.
Who's Mr. Snow?
Mr. Snow is the manager of the hotel.
The manager of the Continental?
The manager of the Hotel Regency Continental. Or the Regency Grand Continental.
Yeah, she calls him on the phone.
Yeah.
She goes, somebody get Mr.
Well, she calls the front desk.
Yeah.
And says, get Mr. Snow.
Yeah.
And send him up. Mr. Black's dead. And then she passes out.
So she looks up and she sees a mirror. And she sees herself in the mirror, and then she passes out.
Right. And then...
like on top of the body?
No, just on I don't... It doesn't say where. She just passes out. When she wakes up, she calls them back again.
Yeah.
And says...
Mr. Snow. Oh, and he answers that time, right?
Yeah, yeah. And so he comes up.
Finally. It's probably been like a half hour.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah, they're like, whatever.
Yeah. We also meet Mr. Preston, the doorman.
Oh, yeah, we like Mr. Preston.
Yeah, he's a sweet older gentleman.
And
yeah.
he's nice to her.
Yes.
So now we have 2 people that are nice to her.
2 people that are nice. Juan Manuel and Mr. Preston.
In a whole hotel.
Cheryl Green is an a-hole, and she is Molly's boss. She's described as slovenly and lazy, which is exactly the kind of qualities I know I would look for in the head maid.
In the supervisor.
Yeah.
So one of the things about Molly is even though everybody's mean to her, and she knows she's not totally oblivious to people being mean to her.
Yeah.
And this girl Cheryl literally takes advantage of her by going to get her tips before she can get them.
Yes.
But Molly never goes out of her way to be unkind to anyone else. She's generous pretty much all the time.
Although I will say she does state there several times if she ever catches Cheryl stealing her tips, it's on like Donkey Kong.
Yeah, she says that, but you never actually see her do anything mean in the books.
Cheryl always shows up late, and she steals from the maids.
Mm-hmm.
A couple of the other maids that we meet are Sunita and Sunshine.
They're also nice, but they're not like nice. They're just there and they're not mean.
And it's at this point that you find out that Molly is giving Juan Manuel key cards to the hotels. When she's giving him the key card today, she notices he has burns on his arms.
Oh, yeah.
And he's being sort of shady about it, just kind of like, oh, well, I got it, doing the dishes.
So she gives him a key card because he doesn't have a place to stay.
Correct.
So she's like, okay, here's the room you're going to stay in tonight.
So she gives him a key card each night so that he can stay in the hotel each night. Because she wants to be helpful. So at this point in time, we learn about a guy named Wilbur.
Another backtrack.
Yeah, and so it's like a backtrack in a backtrack. It was kind of weird. He was her only boyfriend, and she describes him as a cheater.
I just thought she thought he was her boyfriend. Like she makes that mistake with another person in the book.
She does. She does make that mistake with another person, but this with Wilbur, it sounds like it was actually a relationship where he was using her. So now she goes down into the bar and she gets the newspapers for Rodney. And she noticed Rodney has a Rolex.
Yeah, so this is another backtrack because now we're doing more detailing of her morning procedure before she even starts cleaning rooms.
Yes.
Because she takes a newspaper to each person's room.
Right.
And she's excited to go see Rodney every day because he's cute.
Not only that, but they've been out on a date before.
Yes. So he has a
Rolex. At least in her mind.
Yeah.
Yes, he has a Rolex on. And the newspaper actually has a headline about the black family and the kind of things that they're in right now. Like one of the things that they're talking about is the sons are ne'er-do-wells.
Yeah.
How do they say it?
Ne'er-do-well.
Ne'er-do-well. And the daughter, who owns 49%, doesn't get along with the father.
So Giselle Black is not the first wife.
She is not the first wife.
But these children Tim's talking about are from the previous Mrs. Black.
Previous Mrs. Black. Then we're back upstairs, and Mr. Black bowls into her with a deed in his pocket. Giselle was crying and storms off when Molly comes in. Giselle had a purse with 2 one-way tickets to the Caymans.
So Molly notices a lot of little details.
She does. She notices all kinds of details. And there was no tip left by the Blacks. So she couldn't shut the closet door because the safe in the closet was open, and she could see several things in there.
What'd you see in the safe?
She saw 2 stacks of cash. Yeah, not quiche. Quiche should go bad in a safe. You have to keep that in a fridge.
Oh, it might be a refrigerated safe.
It could be. And also some papers and other stuff in there.
And so when she entered, Giselle ran into the bathroom.
Giselle was really upset. Right, and ran into the bathroom. Then we kind of snap back into a different Tarantino line here. Mr. Snow brings in Detective Stark. Detective Stark appears to peer through Molly.
So this is up in the Black's room. Snow came. I'm asking.
No.
Oh.
So Snow had Molly taken down to his office,
Okay.
and so she was sitting in his
Oh.
office,
And the detective came
and
in.
the detective came in to talk to her. Um, the detective then says she wants to take Molly down to the station, just to answer some routine questions. Molly goes with Detective Stark to the police station, and the detective asks her if she saw anything out of the ordinary. Now,
And Molly's like, I just told you, reader, all this crap I saw.
I know she's just like,
So we know all the stuff.
we
she
know
saw.
all the stuff. We know
A
a
lot
lot
of
of
it,
it.
yeah.
Yeah.
But doesn't she tell Stark, no, I didn't see anything?
Yeah. So she tells Stark some details, but not all the details. Like she left out that she saw the pills, and
Yeah.
she saw.
At this point, we know that she likes Giselle. She thinks
Yeah.
Giselle is nice to her. She thinks she's one of the people who are nice. And so she doesn't want to tell the detective anything that will incriminate Giselle.
And so while she's there, Molly kind of does another flashback
In the detective's office?
in the detective's office. And so, like, the detective's like, you're
oh, yeah,
so
she's just kind of like
spacey.
sitting there thinking, yeah, that's right. And
Yeah.
she's like smiling or something, right? It's something happy.
Well, Molly, so it flashes back to Molly and Giselle are talking and discussing what it's like to be a maid.
Oh, yeah.
Giselle makes mention that Molly talks kind of weird.
Oh, yeah. So Giselle kind of like tries to help her sometimes
Yeah.
with her, like helping to.
Because she talks kind of awkward about things. Like when she came in, she's like, "Are you ready for me to return your room to a state of perfection?"
Yeah, and she tells her not to stand too close, like stand a trolley's width away from people.
Yes, because Molly doesn't have a problem with the
closeness.
distance. Yeah, but other people do. So Giselle gives her $100 tip.
This is back a while ago.
Yes.
Okay.
Giselle promises that she would never laugh at Molly, but would laugh with her. Giselle also tells her that Mr. Black cheats on her with at least 2 different women. And Molly says she detests cheaters because of Wilbur. But Molly also notices that Giselle has bruises on her body. Right? So she knows that Mr. Black hits her. But Giselle says, she knows she deserves better, and she's working on it. And she talks about, how her favorite place in the world is the Cayman Islands, and that Mr. Black owns a house there. And Giselle gives Molly this little trinket. It's like an hourglass that has sand from the Cayman Islands in it. And, Molly says that she'll always treasure it.
Yeah, Molly has admired it like all the time she's there cleaning.
Yeah.
And so Giselle's like, you can have it.
And then Cheryl tries to horn in on Molly's position with the blacks, and Giselle is like, "No, Molly's the best. Why would I want you?"
So that's the other reason she likes her, is because she kind of put her in her place.
Giselle gives Cheryl $10 and tells her that she's more than happy with Molly.
Yeah.
And then Molly snaps out of this flashback to Detective Stark asking if Giselle is known to Molly or if she had said anything that might help the investigation.
And so we just heard that they're friends, and she's like, are you guys friends?
Yeah, and she's like, no, I just clean. And so Detective Stark takes Molly home. Even after 9 months of being without Gran, she calls out to Gran as soon as she walks in the house.
So they lived together, her and her grandma.
Yes.
They're all each other had.
For forever.
Pretty much.
Basically, for all of Molly's 25 years. And Gran had taught her to clean daily. And she had like this little ditty.
Yeah,
for
like
each
for each day.
Yeah.
The mnemonic thing to help her remember.
But she hasn't cleaned Gran's room in months.
Yeah.
So she goes through this whole routine of cleaning the entire house, but she just can't go in Gran's room. Then Molly is reminiscing about her mother,
So what do we know about Molly's mother?
Molly looks just like her mother, and Molly's father is a ne'er-do-well.
And why doesn't she live with her mother?
Um, because of the husband, isn't it?
Molly's mom was like really into drugs and was living on the
Oh
street.
yes, yes.
She would come back once in a while, but Molly rarely ever saw her, so that's why
Right,
she lived with her
right,
grandma.
right. Lots of drugs. Um, Gran had actually saved up a nest egg for Molly.
Called
The Fabergé.
Fabergé.
Uh,
Every time she would deposit part of her check in there like every week.
right, and she would take on like extra jobs. Like she would never turn a job down, and she would take on all the extra jobs and all the extra money she would put in there. When it came down to deciding what Molly wanted to do with her life, Molly decided she wanted to be a maid. That's what she
Grandma
wanted to
was
do.
a maid too.
Yeah,
A domestic.
a domestic. So Grand got her an interview at the Hotel Regency Grand. She hit it off with Mr. Snow and got the job. Then she decided she was going to do
Community college?
hotel management.
Yeah.
Is that what I had? Hotel management school, and that's where she met Wilbur.
Oh, okay.
And he was
A ne'er-do-well.
He was a ne'er-do-well, and he was kind of rude. She had to go down to the bank account and deposit some money into the Fabergé. Wilbur went with her, and then he watched her type in her PIN. Basically, Wilbur stole the nest egg.
She never saw him again after that.
The next day she needed to go down to deposit something else, and when she went to go do it, she found she couldn't find her card, and so she took Gran's card down and found out that it was completely gone. But she didn't want to tell Gran.
Oh yeah, she never told Gran.
Yeah, she never told Gran about it. In fact, she never told anybody about it.
Yeah.
And so she's been struggling. At this point, she found out that Gran was sick, and Gran wouldn't tell her what it was. She said she got some pills and they'll help. And then she eventually tells Molly that she's gonna die because she has pancreatic cancer. And she also said that she wants to die at home. She does not want to die in a hospital. So when Molly gets to work the next day, Mr. Snow asks Molly has seen any activities going on in the hotel, possibly illegal activities occurring, and
There's
that's
some
why
whisperings.
Mr. Black's death was so happened.
Yeah.
So
Does she say no?
yeah, she said no. She didn't see anything.
Okay.
She finds out then that Giselle is staying at the hotel still. But Mr. Black's suite is out of bounds because the police are fine-tooth combing it. So she goes and visits Juan Manuel on her daily visit, and he's afraid of what's going to happen. You know, because right now, like I said, he's staying in the hotel. There was an issue with his visa, and he doesn't have any place to stay, and so Molly's been helping him out, getting him a key card so he can stay in the hotel, and then she goes in and cleans up after him in the morning, so no one is any of the wiser. So she gives him a room, a key card to room 202, and then Rodney greets her, and they hug, and
Rodney's the bartender.
Rodney's the bartender. And she notices that he has a black eye. And Rodney wants her to meet after work to determine what she told the cops.
Ah, yes.
That's pretty shady right there, huh?
But she doesn't notice that. She's just like, ooh.
Yeah, Molly thinks Rodney wants to take her on their second date. So she goes back to the 4th floor for cleaning. Then as she's doing this, she's thinking back to the day um, of her first date with Rodney. Um, and what had happened was she went into a room to clean it, and there wasn't supposed to be anybody there, but there were these two really scary guys in there. And then Juan Manuel and Rodney come out, and they're all in there together. And she volunteers to clean up after them because she's like, this place is a wreck. And the scary guys are like, we just cleaned this. And she's like, no, you didn't. Look, there's this and this and this and this and this and that and this. And they were like, okay. And so she goes and cleans it all up. And they were like, oh.
We're like, wow, she's great.
I think we're going to have you clean up every morning.
Yeah.
And so...
so because she likes cleaning so much, she gets herself into this daily routine of cleaning up after the mess that they're making in the room.
Right. And so Rodney keeps pointing out, too, first off, he asks her to meet after work. So now she's like, oh, good, a date. And he's telling her that the scary men are Juan Manuel's friends. And he talks her into helping them. And so...
yeah, and he's like, don't tell anybody or else Juan will get in trouble. Because he doesn't have his visa.
He doesn't have a visa, and, he's trying to send money home, and yeah, so he would be kicked out. Molly's also really concerned with what's going to happen with Giselle, because Giselle's her friend. Rodney at dinner convinces Molly to tell him what she told the cops.
Where do they go to dinner?
They went to Olive Garden.
That's Molly's favorite restaurant.
Molly's favorite restaurant. So this is like a sign to her that her and Rodney are to be together forever.
Her and Gran used to go all the time, and they would have unlimited breadsticks and salad. And they go there, and she thinks it's a date, but Rodney, of course, is just like, let's get down to business. And the waitresses is like, would you like unlimited soup and salad? And she's just like, she's about to say yes, and Rodney's like, no. No. And so she's disappointed.
Yeah. And then, so he asks her what she saw in the hotel room. She tells him what she saw, including the pills. Rodney wants to know if the cops asked about him. Yeah. And she goes, why would they want to know about you?
Yeah.
So.
He's just like, oh, no.
Okay. And then he's like, okay, we're done. And he leaves.
Yeah.
And she's like, all right. And so she starts walking home. And
he didn't even give her a ride home.
He didn't give her a ride home or anything. Molly goes home. She's on her way home. And Giselle finds her.
On the street.
On the street.
Oh, Giselle comes to her house.
Right.
Okay.
And, Giselle's breaking down crying. And she points out that Molly's mom looks just like Molly. And, they're talking, and she explains that she had this really hardcore prenup that she'd signed. And then she says that she had had an argument with Mr. Black, and she wanted to know what Molly had told the police.
Everybody wants to know.
Everybody wants to know that. And then Giselle asks Molly to be her maid at the hotel because she was taken off of being Giselle's maid by Mr. Snell.
Oh.
Right. And Giselle reaches into her purse, and Molly notices
the wad of cash.
The wad of cash that looked like the wad of cash that was in the hotel safe. Giselle peels off $200 bills and gives them to Molly, and asks Molly to do her a favor and retrieve her gun that she had hid inside the vent in the bathroom. Not the vent. What is that called?
I think they call it a vent in the bathroom.
The vent, the fan.
So earlier, to be clear, Mr. Black did not die from a gunshot wound.
No.
Did we learn earlier how he died?
Have we learned that yet?
I'm not sure. The little dots are an indicator. We'll let you think about it. We do learn at some point, though.
Right. Um,
So does she agree to go get the gun?
she does.
Mm-hmm. She asks Giselle how you even found me.
Yeah.
And she tells her somebody at the hotel. She's like, oh, I don't
Yeah.
remember. Somebody at the hotel told me.
Yeah.
And you're like, you're starting to get real sus of Giselle now.
Yeah. Pretty sus. Molly goes to the hotel. And Mr. Snow is talking to Molly about the suite. And Rodney wants Molly to put Juan Manuel up in the black suite tonight.
Really?
Yeah,
But
because
she can't, right?
well, no, they had opened the suite back up.
Oh.
But Mr. Snow wasn't going to put anybody in that suite for a while because of that. And so Rodney's like, it'll make the perfect place for Juan Manuel to stay for a while because no one's going in there. And then he asks her to put Juan Manuel's bag in the room under the bed.
And I think we're to understand that she does that every night.
Yes, we come to find that out. Oh, so Molly goes in. She cleans the black suite. She retrieves Giselle's gun, hides it in her vacuum. She also finds Mr. Black's ring, and she thinks, "Oh my, what a lucky happenstance!" So she pockets it. Molly sells Mr. Black's ring.
She takes it to a pawn shop.
Yep. She heads back to work. Mr. Preston sees her coming up the steps, and he's going, "Just go home."
Yeah, he's like,
"Just go home. Don't go in there. Don't go in there."
She's
and
like,
she's
I
like
have
all
to go to
excited.
work.
She's like, "I got to. It's my second half of work." And Detective Stark is inside and wants to ask her more questions. This time she puts Molly in the back seat of the car. She asks about the pills, and Molly's like, "Yeah, I saw the pills. They were Mrs. Black's. They were, what'd she call them? Her
her Ben's friends."
Turns out that Cheryl had told the cops that Molly knows Giselle. Detective Stark pulls out the timer, the little hourglass timer we talked about a little bit ago.
Which was in her locker.
Yes.
It was in Molly's locker, so the detective had gotten in there.
So, Molly gives them up a few more details. And of course, now she's a suspect. Right? And she's like kind of panicking. So she goes home and she pays her rent with the money from Mr. Black's ring. And she calls Rodney panicked.
Yeah, she's like, what should I do? Let me call Rodney.
Yeah. And she tells him about the gun and the ring. He says he'll help. The cops show up at her house and arrest her for possession of guns and drugs.
Aha.
Because they found out that Molly had a gun.
They found the gun in her vacuum.
In her vacuum cleaner.
Wonder how they figured that out.
And they found out about the ring.
The ring, yeah.
So Detective Stark is interrogating her again, and she says something about that Giselle told us that you stole money from Mr. Black's wallet. And she's like, no. Giselle gave me that money. And then they tell her that Cheryl told him about the ring. And that they were asking around, and Rodney told them that he thought she was capable of killing.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Stab in the heart.
And Detective Stark tells her that the jig's up. She's going to be arrested for drugs and all this other stuff.
And she's like, drugs? I've never touched a drug in my life.
Right. And
because her mom always said, her grandma always said, no matter what you do, don't ever touch drugs.
Right.
So I promised my grandma I would never touch drugs.
And she hasn't, to her knowledge. So Molly's like all confused. She doesn't know what to do. She calls Mr. Preston for help.
From jail?
Yes.
Yeah, because they arrested her.
Yeah, they were arresting her. They gave her one phone call with her phone. By the way, I did jump over it, but she passed out twice.
Oh, yeah.
from when they went to arrest her at her house, she passed out, and then once at the police station as well. And she asked them to hold on to her phone so that she could make her one phone call. But she couldn't remember why she wanted to make it or who to call. And she's like, I know it must have been somebody in my contacts list. So she looks up her contact list. There's a total of 8 people in there. And she's like, Mr. Preston. So she calls Mr. Preston. We find out that Mr. Preston's daughter, Charlotte, is a highfalutin lawyer. Highfalutin. And then Molly has to go into a bail hearing by herself.
With just some court-appointed
Yeah,
lawyer.
with a court-appointed attorney. So Detective Stark is in front of the bail hearing, and she's linking Molly to Mr. Black and the drugs, and Molly just kind of speaks up on her own, and she's talking in front of the judge, and the judge is loving it, right? He's just smiling, thinking this is fun or funny, and so he releases her on bail.
It's like $80,000.
$800,000.
$800,000.
$800,000 worth of bail, but you only have to put up like 10%.
Oh.
So.
So 80,000.
Charlotte, yeah. So Charlotte put up the money for her bail. They go back to Molly's house so that they can figure out what to do. And
Charlotte, Molly, and Preston.
Charlotte, Molly, and Preston. Mr. Preston, by the way. Because that's his last name, not his first.
They're going up to Molly's room, and her supervisor comes out.
Yeah, well, yeah, the Mr. Russo comes out, and he's just like, no, you're out of here. I knew you were trouble and all this. And I mean, Charlotte just lays into him. Molly describes what she saw when she came into Mr. Black's room.
Okay, so now she has to detail all the events to her lawyer.
Right. So she's telling them everything that she saw. Then she tells them about Giselle's visit and the handgun.
And they're like,
yeah, I was like, what the? She tells them about Rodney knowing about everything, and then she tells them about the Juan Manuel situation.
And they're again like,
yeah,
ooh.
yeah. And so Charlotte lets Molly know. She's like, you're a mule.
Yeah.
And so they decide to call Juan Manuel. And because apparently he has also been part of this operation.
Been manipulated like
and
Molly.
He's been manipulated. So they call him, and he comes to the apartment. And it's really kind of cute here because, like, Molly, when she walks into her house, she takes her shoes off, she takes a towel, wipes her shoes clean, and then puts them into the cupboard. And Juan Manuel does the same thing, and you know
he's really observant of the things that make Molly feel comfortable, and he wants to make sure to
and
help him with that in any way because she's his host.
And he apologizes to Molly profusely and is saying, I tried so hard not to get you wrapped up in this, and I would have done anything to keep you out of it, and. He tells them about Rodney making him process the drugs each night. And so the bag that...
the black bag
that Molly was taking up to the room was drugs that he was cutting up and all night long. And
with the 2 scary guys watching over.
The 2 scary guys. And then he also, Juan produces a picture of Rodney and Giselle kissing.
Did you already expect that?
You should have.
I didn't, actually. Did you expect that?
I did. I thought the 2 of them were in on it together.
I don't know. I didn't.
So, the team of Mr. Preston, Juan Manuel, and Molly.
And Charlotte.
With Charlotte's involvement. Devise a plan. As part of the plan, she meets Rodney at Olive Garden. or the OG as he
This
calls
is
it.
where it finally got good. I enjoyed the whole thing, but I think this is where it gets good.
Yeah, but this is literally like the last
I know.
third of a book.
But this is where it's like everything starts falling into place.
Yeah. So she meets him at the Olive Garden, and she feeds him some information.
Yeah, she starts telling him some stuff to set him on edge a little bit.
Yeah, and you know, like, oh, well, the police were asking about this, and they know. And so she convinces Rodney that he needs to go clean up Mr. Black's suite.
Yeah. Because she can't do it. Because
she's not allowed in the hotel anymore because she's been fired.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that's right. Did we say Mr. Snow fired her?
No, but I didn't even pick up on that until like around here anyhow in the book.
Oh, okay. I remember because she's like, Mr. Snow, I gotta come back to work. And he's like, no, you don't work here anymore.
Oh, you're right. He did say that. He did. So, Juan Manuel is going to go ahead and stay at Molly's house.
Be the center of operations.
Yes. And Mr. Preston goes in and he ends up getting the key card for the Black Suite. And then he passes it to Molly, who's causing a scene.
Yeah, they're doing a little charade.
Yeah, so she's causing a scene, and Mr. Preston passes her the Black Suite card. And then she meets with Rodney and gives him the card so that he can go in and take care of this. And
oh, you forgot to say that at Olive Garden she ordered like a bunch of food.
Oh, a bunch of food.
And at the end he's just taking off and she's like, oh, he's gonna pay for it.
Yeah, he's got this.
And so she gets to take home a whole bunch of all
like
of her
$100 worth of Olive Garden.
Yeah.
So now she's sitting in a coffee shop across the street, and she's having a Raisin Bran muffin.
She loves Raisin Bran muffin.
Yeah. So she's eating a Raisin Bran muffin and tea, and the news comes on, and it's like, this woman is
yeah. It shows her on the TV.
Yeah, as being arrested for
this is our murder. Prime suspect or whatever.
Yeah.
And she's like, oh no. And they're worried because they think Rodney's going to see it and know that they're trying to play him right now.
And while she's sitting there, Molly has a side plan of her own.
That she didn't tell
anybody about. And she calls Giselle and tells her she knows about Rodney, her and Rodney. And Giselle says, she'll put it right, and
Giselle starts crying and apologizing for using her.
Yeah, and she was like, I didn't even know, and that's why Rodney has the black eye, is because I was so upset I hit him with my purse.
When she found out that they were using Molly as a mule.
And Molly tells Giselle to run.
Yeah.
To take the money and
She's like, do me a favor. If you're my friend, you will leave and disappear and not try to contact Rodney.
Yeah, she watches as Rodney is being arrested.
Yeah, so the coffee shop has a view of the front of the hotel.
The front of the hotel, yeah.
Okay.
When she gets home, Juan Manuel is waiting for her.
Yay! He's so relieved. He's like, oh my gosh, you're back.
Yeah, and he polishes her shoes.
Yeah. And
then gives her a hug.
Yeah, and then he's cooked her a meal, right?
Well, he had taken the Olive Garden meal.
Oh, yeah.
And
he'd portioned it out and made a nice setting.
Yeah, a nice setting for her. And he found one of Grandma's...
tea sets?
No, candles.
Oh.
And he's like, I know this is a really special...
I love that part.
I know this is a really special candle, but this is a really special meal. Can we light the candle?
I love that part because he's like, as long as there's candles, we have hope. So he's going to light it for them to have hope.
Yeah, it was really sweet. So, Molly enjoys her meal with Juan Manuel. And the next really sweet thing was Juan Manuel, puts on Gran's apron. And I don't remember what all was on it, but she describes it, and it was like, it's definitely a girl's apron, you know what I mean?
And he washes up.
And he helps her clean up.
And he's like, why do you think I'm a dishwasher? I like cleaning too.
Yeah. Then Mr. Preston is talking to Molly and gives some details about Grandma.
So we've known from the beginning that Mr. Preston and Molly's grandma were friends.
Right.
And specifically that she was friends with Mr. Preston's late wife.
True.
And so when his wife died, he leaned heavily on grandma to support him in his grief.
Right.
So we know that they're acquainted.
So it turns out that Mr. Preston and Gran were actually engaged.
Mm-hmm.
When Gran was 17,
Yeah.
I think he said. 16 or 17.
And Gran was from a wealthy family.
A wealthy family, and they absolutely refused to let her marry Mr. Preston.
Mm-hmm.
He talks about how Gran got pregnant and had a baby at 17 with a ne'er-do-well.
Mm-hmm.
And if you kind of listen to the story,
well, so and then at that part she decides to not give her baby up, and the family disowns her.
And they disown
because
her
she's going to go single parent.
Right. And
child.
so she becomes a domestic, and I mean, she lived her life, and she enjoyed cleaning, so.
And so Preston was like, and I knew this guy that got her pregnant. Yeah. And I know he would have wanted to be involved if he'd been allowed to.
Yeah.
And Charlotte's like, Dad, what?
Is there something else you want to tell me?
So Charlotte's got it figured out, but Molly doesn't.
Yeah, Molly doesn't know that Mr. Preston is her granddad.
And he also said that Grandma had told him all the troubles with her daughter, and had tried to get Mr. Preston to go talk some sense into her daughter. Right. So he was involved in that way too, but the daughter wouldn't listen to him.
Juan Manuel is going to take Molly's room, and Molly's going to take Gran's room.
Yeah, why is he just staying with her?
Because he doesn't have anywhere else to go.
Mm-hmm.
So she said that he could stay with her.
And he doesn't have a job right now, because didn't he get fired too?
He also got fired.
Yeah.
Yeah, he got fired.
So she's like, you can stay for like one night, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Anyhow, so the next part is actually really sad.
Yeah.
In a way.
Because she's in Grandma's room now, and she hasn't gone in there in months.
Yeah, hasn't been in there in almost 9 months. And she starts thinking back on Gran's death.
Mm-hmm.
And how on the last day, how really bad it was for Gran,
mm-hmm.
and how painful it was, and
she had pills that were supposed to help her with her pain, but they weren't working anymore.
Yeah, and so she tells Molly that it's time.
Yeah, and she's like, "Don't forget, you promised." And Molly's like, "I can't do it."
Yeah, and so anyhow, Molly goes and she fixes a tea, and she puts the rest of Graham's pain medicine in it,
mm-hmm.
which was 4 pills, and she helps Gran to drink it. And then she helps Gran lay back down, and she takes the pillow and
the Serenity Prayer pillow
and puts it over Gran's face and smothers her.
Mm-hmm.
It should probably be noted at this point that is the exact manner that Mr. Black died in.
Mm-hmm. I think they call that petechial hemorrhaging.
Yes.
The little dots around the eyes.
I do believe so. So the next morning, she shares a breakfast with Juan. Mr. Snow calls to invite her back, offers
mm-hmm.
her job.
Mm-hmm. And she's like, well, I can't come right this second. I'm in the middle of breakfast.
Yeah, and he's like, come back whenever you want. And she's like, can I come in tomorrow? And he's like, yes. So she's like, okay, great. And
then she goes, what about Juan Manuel?
I thought he said, now I got to call Juan, too.
Oh, yeah. And she's like, he's right here.
He's right here. He's like, what? So they both get their jobs back.
Mm-hmm.
Several months later, Molly's the new head maid.
Yay! I was waiting for that one.
Yes, she became the head maid. And Juan Manuel is Molly's new boyfriend.
Her new beau.
Yes.
Cute.
Molly had testified that she saw someone with a pillow that killed Mr. Black.
Yeah. But she's like, I didn't get a good enough look at him. Because they keep wanting her to finger Rodney and be like, is that who killed? And she's like, I don't know.
Yeah, and so Rodney ends up getting convicted of everything.
The drug charges, right? Not the
murder? I thought he got convicted of the murder, too.
Oh. I don't know.
Because she was, like, really vague about who did it.
Mm-hmm.
And, like, it kind of pointed to him.
And everybody at work respects her now. They're all like, oh, Molly, you were so great in court. And, you know, all of her coworkers are super happy that she's the boss. She's a great boss. And Cheryl still works there.
Cheryl still does work there, but she's been demoted.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then what happens?
So then Molly finds out that she received a wire.
Some quiche?
Some quiche.
How much?
$10,000 from Giselle.
Yay!
Under the name Sandy Beach, was it?
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. Sandy Cayman.
Yeah.
Sandy Cayman. And that is the end of the book.
So she figures Giselle must be at the Cayman, which the deed that was in his pocket, did she tell Molly? That last thing that happened right after we had a fight, Mr. Black was like, fine. And so he goes and signs the deed over in her name. Because she's like, at least if you're going to cheat on me, like, give me that or something.
Yeah, so he signed the deed over to her.
Yeah.
And so she's living in the Cayman Islands.
Yeah.
And then we go into the epilogue.
Yeah, so that's just the end. And then epilogue. And do not skip the epilogue.
Don't skip the epilogue. Well, I mean, obviously you're not going to skip the epilogue if you're still listening. Because the epilogue actually had some important information in it.
Yeah, really important.
Molly states that truth is subjective. Right? And so some of the testimony she gave was a bit vague.
Mm-hmm.
And in the epilogue, we find out why. We find out that when she saw in the mirror herself, she also saw somebody holding a pillow.
Mm-hmm. Right before she fainted.
Right before she fainted.
And it reminded her of her holding the pillow up to Gran.
So when she came to, this person gave her some water and was helping her, and they had a nice little discussion about where they go from there.
Mm-hmm.
It turns out that the person who actually killed Mr. Black was his first wife.
Mm-hmm.
She had shown up to talk to him about his daughter Victoria, and
he'd started chasing her, yelling, hitting,
belligerent, and
so then he'd like tripped and fallen over.
And so she smothered him.
She just picked up a pillow off the bed.
Yep. And so Molly actually cleans up the hotel room, and she asks the first wife, what exactly did you touch?
Yep.
She makes sure to clean everything that this woman touched up. And she took the pillow, and that was one of the mysteries. They were like, where's the pillow melt?
Yeah.
And Molly had taken the pillow down to
the incinerator.
To have it cleaned, and it.
Oh.
So it's been cleaned and placed in another room. And so you find out in the end, it wasn't Rodney. It was actually Mr. Black's first wife that killed him.
And she doesn't say, but the reason why she decided not to like pursue justice with exactness is it really reminded her of the mercy that she was doing when she helped Grandma to die.
Well, not only that, but Mr. Black was a bad guy.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how she rationalized it. Is sometimes you have to do a bad thing to do two right things.
Something like that, yeah.
Something like, because they mentioned that little idiom a couple of times in the book. And, you know, she knew that he was abusive to
the first
Mrs. Black, the second Mrs. Black.
He was about to like cancel his daughter from the company and stuff. Yeah. He was running drugs. Well, she didn't know that at the time. Because she didn't understand that they had dusted her Maid cart and found it covered in cocaine.
Cocaine, yeah.
And she's like, what? I've never touched drugs.
Yeah.
but it was covered in cocaine because she'd been cleaning up cocaine every night.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you liked it.
Yeah, it wasn't bad.
Yay.
It was not a bad book.
So I don't know anything about this author. The reason I picked this book was for the reasons that I said before, but also it won the award last year. It got the top place on mysteries, like in the mystery genre for Goodreads. And it had a lot of people that reviewed it really critically because they didn't feel like it was a good representation of an autistic person. However, the rainbow of where you can fall and how autism affects you and expresses in your life is so diverse. This is just one experience.
Yeah.
And so it didn't bother me. However, I also don't live with autism, so maybe it's more bothersome to somebody who's reading it from that vantage point. But I thought it was nice, and I also know that they're making this into a movie. And so I thought, well, this will be good to read this because I'll probably want to see the movie, and I'll probably make this guy go watch it with me. So,
you think it'll star Temple Grandin?
No, it's going to star the girl from Black Widow. Remember, I already told you.
Black Widow.
What is her name? She was from Midsummer, the movie, not the Midsummer Murders, and she's also from Black Widow. She plays Natasha's sister.
Oh, the blonde girl?
Uh-huh.
Okay, yeah.
I know her name, but I just can't think of it right now.
Yes, Natasha's sister.
Yeah. So anyway, I like the book too. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
Yeah.
Would you read anything by this author again?
Maybe.
I don't plan on picking anything by her in the near future. Woo! Tim, however, for his next book, has picked us a book by the same author that we read very first.
So let me just clarify. Mm-hmm. The first book that we read was by two authors working together.
Right.
John Ringo and David Weber.
Right.
Now, the book that I'm having you read now is by John Ringo.
Do you remember, is John Ringo the guy that looks like Dr. Phil, or is he the other guy?
Dr. Phil?
One of the two authors looks... I'll have to watch our original
I think it's the other one.
The other one is John Ringo? So the younger looking one.
The skinny, tall guy?
I don't know. I couldn't see his size, but the other guy looks like Dr. Phil.
Okay.
It is Dr. Phil.
It could be.
So, if you would like to join us for our next book, we're reading a book about the zombie apocalypse, and it's actually quite entertaining. I'm halfway through the read.
Really? You're enjoying it?
Yeah, I'm halfway through the read, and Tim says that it's a big series. But
11 books.
If you want to read it by next Tuesday, you can do that, and then you can follow along with us in our discussion. So...
Is it just any John Ringo book, or are you going to give him a title?
It's called Under a Graveyard Sky. Yeah, I know. Just read any book.
Just read any of them. We'll get there.
Oh, man. So, yeah, that's going to be next week. And then we'll be back to our movie queue, which has not been chosen yet. So we'll have to...
We haven't chosen any movies
No,
yet.
We'll have to let you know in the next episode. So, thank you so much. Oh, did anything about this book surprise you? Or did your opinion change as you read it? He wasn't surprised by Giselle and Rodney working together.
No, I wasn't. I was a little surprised by Mr. Preston being her grandfather.
Oh yeah, that was fun.
And that was a fun one, especially because he's always looked out for her at the hotel.
I feel like that was pretty lucky. He came in the clutch with his lawyer daughter. I was like, well, that's lucky.
Well, they had talked about it earlier.
Briefly, very briefly.
Yeah, his daughter was a lawyer.
Were you surprised that she got together with one Manuel at the end?
No.
You thought he was a baddie for a little bit.
You know what? When you know somebody is cutting drugs all night, that's usually a good sign that he's a baddie. Unless you cut drugs. If you do, no.
No harm, no foul.
No judgment. But yeah, I don't know. You know what? I will say there was one big surprise for me.
I got shimmer on you, by the way.
It's okay.
So your opinion changed as you read the book?
Well, no, I was going to say there was one big surprise for me.
Okay.
And it was that she had killed Gran.
Yeah. That she had known who the actual killer was in the end. I was surprised it was the first Mrs. Black. I didn't expect that.
I didn't expect that either.
I thought it was going to be Giselle, and I thought that she was just covering for Giselle the whole time.
I thought that could be the case, too.
Yeah.
But what was the other question you had?
Did your opinion change?
Did my opinion change?
I think it did, because for the first few days he was reading this, he was like, and then to hear him say that he liked it.
Yeah, I would have to say that changed it a little bit, because like
once they started going,
once we hit the today and went forward, that was a lot better for me. I absolutely hate that whole bouncing back and forth thing.
By the time when it moved a few months forward, had Wilbur gotten caught?
No. At this point, Wilbur has gotten away scot-free, and I believe he will be the nemesis in book 2.
Okay. All right, and with that, we're going to wrap it, because that's our prediction for book 2.
Yes, Molly versus Wilbur.
Yeah, Wilbur versus the world.
Molly v. Wilbur.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining us for this review today. If you enjoyed it, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe. Leave us your comments below if you've read the book, if you're going to read the book, any suggestions for the next movies or books we should choose.
Yep.
Let us know. Okay, that's it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, bye.
Bye.